You just hit your microphone first.
Yes. I'd like to call to order the Organizational Service and Performance and Monitoring Committee. Tracy, will you call the roll?
Okay, Mayor Biassiata, Ms. Moss.
Here.
Mr. Sleesman. Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch.
Here.
We have 4 committee members present.
We have a very busy agenda, only 2 items, but they're both very important. The first thing, actually we have 3. We have the quarterly management report, review of the second quarter results for 2023 results. I think our esteemed leader, Ms. Birdsong Terry, is going to lead us in that.
Good morning, everyone. You can hear me okay? Great. Apologies for running a little behind. I was behind a broken down truck, so we'll see how that goes. Good morning. We will start out with an update for the second quarter report at the dais, and also as will be posted, you should see a quarterly management report spanning about 30 pages. I'll be going through some of the highlights from that report. Per usual, we give a general manager's update in the first few pages. Therefore, we talk about a lot of the conversations we've been having at a legislative level to be able to talk through some of the economic impacts of our system in the region. We'll start out with a review of the general fund. Total revenues, always like to be able to give a high-level review of how we're doing financially. That drives the report. Passenger fares, if you can see, is around 5% higher than year over year at this time for second quarter. Also, we have an increase in sales tax and use tax. Also, other revenues are up as well. That includes things such as advertising, investments, and reimbursements from the authority. We also go into their operating expenses, which is a little lower, and we're looking at personnel costs about flat, and also fuel hedging. We continue to stabilize costs, which is always a great thing for us. Looking at the transfers, we always have the $10 million in rolling stock. This is the money that we put into the fund to be able to support our mission to replace our rail fleet. And we do have the 27th pay kicking in for this particular quarter, which brings us right under $1 million. Bond retirement is at $4.5 million transferred. And these are items that are also included in our scorecard, more in the details of the departmental scorecard rather than the agency, but we'll be going through that in the next presentation to give you an idea of how we're faring financially for the quarter as it remains for the tactical review. This is the management report that gives you the high level for the authority overall. Also like to be able to give you an idea of the capital expenditures. As you can see, the federal assistance is a little difficult to read on the bottom because of the lighting. In your reports, though, you will see that the bus improvement program, thanks, Doc, equipment, vehicles, facilities improvement are always things that are fluid. We have certain capital expenditures that we hit at certain times of year due to grants coming through. That's also something that we'll be talking about within the next few minutes as we go through the tactical review of the 4 areas of focus for the authority. Federal assistance is something that really depends on the ebb and flow of the legislative body, and you will see the rail projects which remain constant for us in 2023. A lot of those projects have come in earlier in the year, and now we remain focused on vehicle replacement, rail project, and facility improvement. Those are our mainstays for the second quarter of the year. At that point, I will conclude my overall review of the financials. We are going to get into a little bit more discussion from an operational standpoint in the next few minutes as we start to go through the Transpro and traction data. So I'll save the redundancy as I might have gone through this report to be able to talk through some of our goal setting and metrics in the next few minutes. Unless there are any additional questions that you may have or questions that you'd like to jumpstart now, I'm happy to address.
Any questions from the committee or the board as a whole? I think we're good.
All right, I'll just stay up here if that's okay. All right, great.
This is our second, just so everyone knows where we're at on the agenda, this is our second item. It's our traction results. And I think Ms. Birdsong Terry referenced it about that she would be going into some of the other detail in here because there is overlap.
Thank you very much, Chair Moss. Now we'll start out the report that you see in front of you on the screen. It's called Traction. That's what we've internally dubbed it. Our counterparts in this effort are TransPro, and so sometimes you'll hear a little bit of the two being intertwined. Dr. James Rubin, to my right here, behind Reverend Pickney, will be, we don't include you in this one, just so you know. Dr. Rubin will be going through the information along with me this morning to provide you an update on the quarterly performance review. Now, keep in mind that this information is reported back to the public via the board meeting every 3 months, thereabouts. We did have a little bit of change in the the June report, so now we're back on schedule. We did want to be able to take a deep dive into the last quarter report out, and we will be back to the board in the second quarter in November to be able to go through some of that information. October and January, I'm sorry. If you look at the chart in front of you, we are here is the yellow in the middle, and then the metrics report out. We basically take 2 months internal review and 1 month external review. So if you think about it that way, we meet quarterly. But one thing that we started to change is what the ownership looks like on the internal cycle. We have started to really start to delve into what the metrics mean and how we can kind of grow from where we started a year ago. And I say a year ago because we took a year to jumpstart the process, get all of the data in place, understand what our metrics actually were, and then we started the quarterly reporting with the surveys and getting those calibrated with external parties. So we have a solid year of information, and we're building upon that. Always like to also be able to remind you of a glossary. We understand that sometimes we have newer folks in the room. So our NPS, our Net Promoter Score, is basically how people respond to our service, and it goes into detractors versus promoters. So basically, are you a cheerleader for RTA, or are you someone who's not that excited and you're willing to share that opinion as well? There are some folks that are on the fence, and we deal with those accordingly numerically, so we can understand if someone's a detractor or a promoter or someone that's on the fence, that we can kind of sway either way. This particular calculation lands us in the NPS category, where we are looking at a Net Promoter Score. So how likely are you to recommend RTA to someone else if you think about it that way? Then we also have environmental justice. This was a particular term we wanted to make sure we kept up on the screen because we have a particular bucket, so to speak, of the data that is really community investment and community impact. And a lot of those projects that fall in that bucket, so to speak, or that focus area, have a lot to do with how the community perceives our impact on them as a consumer, as a customer, and as a rider. So the constituency of Greater Cleveland really is intertwined with this particular glossary definition because the Department of Transportation ensures fast, safe, efficient, accessible, all of those great things for transportation, but all of that means nothing if we don't have a focused laser viewpoint on the environmental justice areas. So those areas that really focus on minority populations, equal or greater to the 28.81%, or either those that are at or below the poverty line. As we all know, usually public transportation, and Cleveland is no different, has the bulk of its ridership in its mid to low income residential bracket. Therefore, it makes sense to make sure that we have an eye toward those that are in that economic bracket that are at or below the poverty line, as they do make up a large percentage of our constituency here riding the RTA as well. So we keep that in mind as we move forward. And you'll see in the second bucket there is what I call them on success outcomes on the left-hand side. Community value is where that really comes into play. I'm going to go through this at a high level and then switch it over to James. Again, this is just a recommendation from our staff to you that the 4 areas of success outcomes we want to stick to, and this is what we've been looking at over the last year, are customer experience, community value, sustainable financials, and employee engagement. We have our metrics. We have our information systems, how we get our data. Is it customer surveys? Is it financial reporting? That kind of thing. And then we have a successive definition and a status. We wanted to make sure that we showed you what our definition for success was. So if I take you through, for example, that community value, that secondary bucket there, we have 50% of the community that agrees that RTA serves as an employment opportunity here. in the region. 79% of major projects are within EJ communities. That's that environmental justice I just went over. And we have 4 active TOD projects. We will list those later on in the presentation so you have a reminder of those projects and what they mean to the community. And then we also have a private sector capital to RTA metric in there for the definition. And if you look to the right, the status gives you the percentage-wise how we're doing. So out of 50%, that is our success metric, right? That we want the community to agree that we serve as a good employment opportunity to those capital project values. We're at 32%. So we're almost to our goal, but not quite. We actually have exceeded the number or percentage of major projects within EJ communities. Our goal was 79%, we're currently at 87. So that's how you kind of read that chart there. And we have our success definition as 4 TOD developmental projects. We have 2 that hit the mark. So as you can continually see, and again, capital projects, we actually have exceeded that as well. 7 is our ratio, that's our goal. 9.3 is where we actually are. So we'll start to go into this a little bit deeper. This is just a very high level chart, but we're gonna go through each one of the 4 buckets and explain to you how we're doing. This is gonna be an ebb and flow. For example, operationally, we may not always hit the mark when it comes to weather and reroutes and detours and service. We want to make sure that we have that service out there every day on time without issue. If we have a major blip in the system in a particular quarter, you will see that reflected in these numbers. If a grant doesn't come through for a major capital project, you will see that reflected in these numbers. If we're not closing contracts on time, you will see that in these numbers. If we're not filling our vacancy rate, you can see on the bottom the employee engagement. We have a vacancy fill rate. You hear nationwide that workforce is a problem, manpower is a problem. A lot of our sister agencies, whether they're in the public or private sector, cannot fill the vacancies in their companies. We're no different. We got to make sure we have enough operators, transit police, maintainers, you fill in the blank, to make sure that we get that service out timely and as we have it per schedule. So we have very much bolstered our efforts in those areas to make sure that our vacancy fill rate does not hamper our ability to put out good service. So you'll start to see the success definitions be a little bit tighter, and you'll see our status being able to be elevated because of a lot of the ingenuity, quite honestly, that's coming out of the HR division after we had that team meeting where we said, hey, we cannot let this be an inhibitor, and you'll see that when we talk about the fill rate for operators and mechanics. If you look at the status, you'll see that we are hovering in the 80s and the 90s as far as our percentage. That definitely has exceeded what our success definition has been, and a good example of that would be transit police, for example, where about 2 or 3 quarters ago, we were reporting 23 officers down out of 100 budgeted. We expect to be able to be 100% by the end of the year, which is a great thing to be able to report. And according to my last conversation with the chief yesterday, we would imagine that we're probably going to be in the single digits by September, if not October, and then being able to reduce that down to 0 by the end of the year. So those are recruitment efforts that are now being fruitful, that have taken us a full year to be able to get out into those areas of the community where we may not have been for hiring efforts, to think about how our packaging is for benefits, making sure that we're paying with market, in comparison with market, and the same thing on the operating side. So we'll go into that a little bit later on. Now I'm going to hand it over to James, who's going to go through our organizational scorecards and give you a little bit more information on that. I may pop in every now and then to be able to explain a particular tactic that we have or a project that's leading to that number.
Thank you, India, and thank you to the RTA board, leadership team, members of the public for having me here today to report on this for you. I'm going to start by giving us a brief snapshot of the current status of where things are in the scorecard for each of these 4 success outcomes. We'll look at how Q1 points were earned and then the most recent Q2. So for customer experience, Q1, we see we're 28.7, slight change for Q2, down by by 0.5 points there, very small decrease. For community value, we see a slight increase from 26.1 to 26.7 in terms of points. We'll go into each of these in a little bit more depth in a sec. Tremendous improvement here in terms of points for financial sustainability. There's a big reason why. We'll take a look when we look at that scorecard. And then employee engagement staying even. So in quarter one, the total score points were 82.9. Improvement to quarter two, where RTA's total score points are 89.7 out of 100. So really close to that 90 out of 100 threshold, which is right at that 90%. So a B plus is what we're categorizing the score points. The first category I want to look at for everyone's here is customer experience. And in order to really look at customer experience, I think we need to dive into some of the survey results that you guys have been out and on a quarterly basis asking customers what they think of the service on each mode. There are two measures that really speak towards the overall customer experience. One, India already mentioned to you guys, which is Net Promoter Score, right? That's how likely are RTA customers to recommend service to their friends and family. We ask them to rate that on a 0 to 10 scale. 9s and 10s are what we call promoters. That's what we want. Those are people who are likely to recommend. 0 through 6 are detractors. Those are people who are saying, no, don't take it. And 7 and 8 are neutrals. We also look at overall satisfaction, which is probably easier to understand intuitively, right? Overall, how satisfied are you with the service? So let's take a look at how each of these performed in terms of each mode. The first thing we're looking at here is fixed route bus. And you could see from our last wave, March 2023, this past March, up through our newest wave 6 in June, we see a 10-point improvement in Net Promoter Score, which is tremendous. It's tremendous because it's an improvement, but it's also noteworthy in that 70% of your ridership is on fixed route bus. So that's why we're seeing good news here with a 10-point increase. Together, if you look at the next sheet here, oh, and by the way, it's creeping up towards that industry average of 34. We have an industry average across all the agencies we work with for Net Promoter Score for fixed route bus of 34, currently at 20. We are very confident that that 20 can get up to 34 because we've seen some of those numbers in the past, and we're encouraged by the direction that it's going there.
Excuse me, just can I interrupt? As this one in particular, I think that it bounces around a lot. You know, we started at 27, we peaked at 35, we go down to 10. And I'm wondering if any of that has to do with where we're doing our surveys, that because I don't know that we do, when we do our 500 surveys, I don't think we do it across all the lines. We focus it in a certain area. Maybe I'm wrong on this, and correct me if I am. But so, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with about it. It's hard for me to really believe that at that the service changes that much from the third wave to the fifth wave. So I'm kind of wondering, with your expertise, does this bounce around? Do we do it across lines? You know, is one that, you know, we're doing one and we're doing the green and the blue line, and I guess we're all on the buses, but, you know, are we doing buses on one side of the town versus the other side of the town, or are we, and is this common in other people where you're surveying? Excuse my interruption.
No, please. Great questions. And two questions there. So the first question is that we're very careful about sampling. So we work with Natoya and her folks and the folks doing the surveying to come up with a sampling plan. So we look at ridership across all of the different routes, and we dispatch surveyors at that rate so that we do get a real representation of ridership across all of the routes. So that is helpful. The second thing is that Net Promoter Scores tend to be a little bit more volatile than overall satisfaction. And the reason for that is the math behind it, right? Think about what we're doing here. We're asking people to how likely are they recommend from 0 to 10. And the win for us as an agency, right, are the 9s and 10s. Those are the recommends. The 0 through 6s are a loss, right? Those are people who are detractors. But the 7s and 8s in Net Promoter Score math don't matter. I mean, it's not that they don't matter, but they don't get calculated into the math. So if you have a lot of 7s and 8s going over to 9s and 10s and flip-flopping back and forth, you're going to see a lot of change in Net Promoter Score. If you look at the next slide, which is overall satisfaction for fixed route bus, I think it's kind of an interesting combination with the previous one. You see a flat 65. It actually tells us something, right? What does that tell us? That means this is your overall satisfaction rate. This includes people who are satisfied and very satisfied, right? And that didn't change, which means that a lot of this change in Net Promoter Score from 10 to 20 were people going from 7s and 8s to 9s and 10s, which will show up in Net Promoter Score land, raising your Net Promoter Score. But 7s and 8s to 9s and 10s in overall satisfaction won't actually change your overall satisfaction rate, because these are people who are saying, I was satisfied, now I'm very satisfied. So that's why we look at both measures. You could still see there's a little bit of volatility even in the overall satisfaction rate, particularly from how the scores were coming in wave 2, 3, and 4 down to wave 5. But this is why we do this over time, right? We're not looking too carefully at any 1 quarter or 2 quarters. We're really looking at trends and seeing how these are going, into the future. There's also tons of initiatives that the agency is taking that we think a lot of which are behind some of that improvement in Net Promoter Score for fixed route bus that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So just jumping ahead, this is overall satisfaction for fixed route bus. I already described static at 65, slightly lower than that industry sampled average of 82. We'll be looking for this to track up the next time we send surveyors out into the field. Something really important to remember that was going on during this survey period was that the red line had a closure east of Tower City. So we encountered both customers on board the bus rapid transit who were diverted from the red line, some of those customers, and we also encountered BRT customers, some people on board BRT who normally would have been rail customers, and some BRT customers who weren't particularly thrilled with that either. So you can see for BRT here, we have a Net Promoter Score of 29, dropping down to 13. We believe that a bunch of those folks were rail customers that were captured during the survey period. And we have an industry sampled average of 34 there, meaning we want to see that come back up. This has been a sort of trend over 3 quarters for bus rapid transit. So we want to keep monitoring this, making sure that in wave 7 we don't have a further decline, but we'll be, and by the way, we'll get to this when I'm done showing you the results. We have reasons why we think these are happening, right? We know what's most important to customers based on the surveys that we give them. We ask them, how satisfied are you? But we also ask them, what's most important to you? So we know the exact attributes that are causing customers to feel less satisfied or more satisfied, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. Here's overall satisfaction for bus rapid transit from a 72 down to a 62 in the most recent wave. Rail, which we expected with the closure to really take a tumble this quarter, really didn't, only down 7 points from a 29 to a 22. That's not too bad considering that many of the customers who were using the service were diverted during that time. Similarly, overall satisfaction for rail here, 69 down to a 66. Not too bad, well within a margin of error there. So we would consider a 69 and a 66 to be just about equivalent. There's about a margin of error about plus or minus 5% on these because we're going out and we're sampling about 400, 450 customers. That gives you that margin of error of plus or minus 5. So take all of these numbers with that sort of range above and below. Want to turn to some more positive news, which is paratransit, increasing Net Promoter Score from 65 up to 70. So a 5-point increase in Net Promoter Score for paratransit, which is a tremendous improvement considering that the industry sampled average is 50. So when you consider that you already were 15 points above the industry average of 50 at 65 the last time the survey went out, a 5-point improvement there is really, really noteworthy for you guys on paratransit. And you could see that the overall satisfaction, very close to a margin, 94 and 88. That's a 6 percentage point drop and a 5% margin of error. We'll consider that pretty much static. So what we do is we combine all of these to give you an agency Net Promoter Score. That here is 21, went up by 1 from 20. Most of that improvement, as you could see, was in fixed route bus because that's 70% of your ridership. That ultimately led to that 1-point improvement in overall agency Net Promoter Score. I want to just point out something about these Net Promoter Scores and overall satisfactions for scheduled services, fixed route bus, BRT, and rail. They're converging in terms of satisfaction levels. In other words, Net Promoter Score for fixed route bus, BRT, and rail in order is 20, 13, and 22. Overall satisfaction, 65, 62, and 66. That's not the worst thing to be happening. What that means is that customers who are using RTA services are having a kind of uniform experience across those services. It's not so much dependent on whether they're on rail or BRT or on bus. The things that they think are important and the things that they think need to be improved or want to raise the satisfaction of are all consistent. And we'll take a look at those in a few minutes. We have an exact idea of what they are. I don't want to forget that we're in the context here of the scorecard. So the first one we were looking at there is customer experience, and there on the top you see Net Promoter Score. That's that agency Net Promoter Score ticking up from 20 to 21. That's really what I wanted to highlight here on the customer experience scorecard page. Overall satisfaction, you could see static 66 to 66, quarter one to quarter two for the agency. Interesting that on-time performance, we look at on-time performance on this scorecard in two different ways. We look at it from the customer's perspective, that's the impression, and we look at it from the agency's perspective. That's our internal data in terms of what vehicles are arriving on time. And I always find it cool, for lack of a better description, when the two measures align. So you could see a 3 percentage point decrease on both of them, meaning the customers are feeling the exact same thing that the agency itself is indicating. It's a small percent, so I wouldn't spend too much time focusing on that. You could see a small decrease in safe and secure riding and vehicle cleanliness. We'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. Second scorecard area was community value. The change I want to highlight here are the capital dollars invested in environmental justice zones and communities. That went from an 81% to an 87%. A big reason for that are these four major projects in environmental justice zones: the West 117th Street platform, the Hayden garage roof, trunk line signal replacement, and OCS rehab. As projects get added, and particularly if those projects are in EJ zones, this number is going to change, and that's why we saw that increase from last quarter to this quarter. A big piece of the financial sustainability change on the scorecard has to do with competitive capital grants, the second item on that chart. You could see a tremendous change from quarter one to quarter two, 12 million to 145 million. That is very much a result of the $130 million rail car grant that you guys achieved and got from the government. So that's why you can see that one going from 12 to 145. And we're allowing you to exceed some points, so that's a 9.1 from a 7. Pretty good there. Jumping to employee engagement, I just want to highlight the first two here. Vacancy fill rates, operators, mechanics, police. That 84 from quarter one is not a carryover to an 84 for quarter two. It is the same result from quarter one to quarter two. We achieved the goal in quarter one. The goal goes up to 87 in quarter two, so we're just falling short of our goal in quarter two. That's why we see a 1.9 instead of 2 there. Though we did increase the non-bargaining vacancy fill rate, and that's why that percentage went from 91 to 93, and you're slightly above the 2 points on the scorecard there for achieving throughout the quarter. So just before I turn things back over to India, remember I wanted to point out that there was a convergence, that a lot of your customers are having the same experience across all of the different modes. This is how we know. So we ask customers what's most important to them. It's what we call key drivers. Right? This is no longer what are you most satisfied with, but now we're asking you what's most important. And you could see from this list that safety, onboard vehicles, safety waiting for vehicles, vehicle cleanliness, and on-time performance are the most important attributes to transit customers in Cleveland, your RTA customers, regardless of the scheduled service that's being provided. One thing that's worth noting is on-time performance, and that moved from what we call a area of opportunity to a strength to maintain. For fixed route bus, satisfaction went up in terms of customer satisfaction with on-time performance. That also is behind that 10-point Net Promoter Score, and that's also a really good piece of news that we'll monitor. So I'm going to turn things back over to India to wrap this up.
Thanks, James. So I know that was a lot of numbers. and that was a lot of data. So even as James is talking, no matter how many times we're going through it, I'm flipping through my book. What I would suggest, if you have the time and the inclination, is the book that you have in front of you here, the quarterly report. Take a look at the data that's inside that document. For the public, we are looking at how to be able to start to post some of these things in the near future so that we can have snippets that make sense for the public as well. Again, remember that we are in the process of really data mining, and we will also look at potential, getting numbers on a lot of these pages, which in the formatting. It makes it a little easier when I need you to look at a certain page. Toward the middle of the book, there is an explanation of the NPS. And there is a satisfaction and community value piece. The book, just for your edification, is separated into the measures and the definitions in the front. Then you get into the different route modes. You have it by route mode. So if you've got fixed route, you've got BRT, you've got paratransit towards back, you've got rail in the middle. They're all separated by mode. And then when you look through the data, the interesting idea is that you see what the national average is in gray for a lot of those bar charts, and then you've got what our data is in red. What you do is you compare those two, and you can see how we're faring through the national market. And that's what really kind of explains how we're doing. So I wanted to just take a moment and get into some of the brass tacks. I won't be too long, but to be able to explain some of the outcomes. I just wanted to bring that up. So when you're looking through the Net Promoter Score, make sure that you take a look at that gray. That's the national average, and then the red is us. It gives you a better indication of how we're doing, and then also breaks it down so for example, we've got increases across the board in community value and satisfaction by customers. I'll give you a quick example. On fixed route bus, 65% feel that they're satisfied with the overall bus service. 80% of our customers feel that RTA provides value to the community. When you compare that with a national average, the averages are 58% as far as overall satisfaction and 70% for value to the community. Again, our numbers are 65% and 80%. So we're exceeding the national average in those two categories, and that's how you basically read through that book when you're looking at what the national average is and then who we are. There was also a good question that was asked by Member Moss on the phone: who are we comparing ourselves to, right? So that we make sure that we have a good comparison and we're not kind of the biggest dog in the fight, right? To make sure that we have a good comparison. So I will invite James to come back up at some point. I'll follow through. But we have a good smattering, I'd say, of those agencies that are embedded in this type of process. Some are smaller, some are larger, and some larger agencies have moved on from the TransPro model and absorbed it into their own systems over time. We are not there yet. However, we are getting a good handle on this data where we want to make sure that at some point we can start to replicate some of this information and be able to kind of data mine it ourselves. I say that right now we're in the middle stage, if we could say that, right? We're not in infancy, but we're in the toddler stage. We're working through this and we're understanding how the data impacts us so that we don't have disparities in surveying and we don't have handicaps to be able to figure out what we need to work on. So we're starting to see the gains due to a lot of the projects that we have based on customer impact. Wanted to be able to walk you through an operational explanation of that. So safety is very important to our customers. That's a no-brainer. We kind of know that already. But thinking about, well, what do you do to make sure that folks actually remain confident in your system? These are some of the tactics that operations, along with TP and our safety division, have been getting into in order to respond to some of the surveys that we have gotten from our customers and the data. Safety on the bus versus safety while waiting. It's a very different metric, and we actually have the data on both. When you look at that, these are some of the tactics that we've gotten into that are showing very successful with our customers. We're recruiting transit police officers. We're expanding the transit ambassador program. We're expanding coach checks. So what does that mean? We check a bus, right? We see, is it safe? We see what the cleanliness is. We see what's going on. It's a monitoring. We're expanding that program. We have a lot of collaboration with Cleveland Police as well as the schools. And then we're also preparing a See Something, Say Something, or Text Something campaign that's tied to our marketing. Vehicle cleanliness, again, we knew that. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? We didn't need TransPro, no disrespect, James, to tell us that, but we need to understand what about that cleanliness issue do the customers want to see, and how do we do the right thing so we're not just working in activity. So you'll see them on the right-hand side. I won't go through all of them, but these are some of the QA programs, the quality assurance, that are now included, and we're seeing those gains in the customer data. So I'm not going to hold you too long. I know we've been up here for a while, but it is a lot of data. The high-level explanation, you can get muddied in the numbers, but the crux of it is this data tells us exactly what the customers want to see. And when we come back to them on a quarterly basis and find out, are we doing better, we're finding that the answer is yes. And we're able to fill those holes strategically. So we're not having workforce issues as much. We're not having manpower issues as much. We're having flexibility within route, and we're having a cleaner system. So it is working for us, and we'll continue to modify as we go along. This is just a quick chart to let you know when we'll come back to you for quarter 4. And then we can also review it in arrears and look at the whole year in totality.
Are there questions from the committee or the board? Go ahead, Mr. Sleesman.
Just a couple quick questions. First, this is a sample size of 400 to 450, and that's total or each one of the modes? Each one of the modes, okay. And then second, when it comes to that safety question, do we have any granular data on folks who feel unsafe waiting for vehicles, why they feel unsafe waiting for vehicles? Is it a crime policing thing? Is it a there's not enough lighting? Is it a other vehicular traffic? Do we know any of that, or is it just a blanket question?
When we do these surveys out in the field, we're limited in time because we're on-board vehicles. So we don't have that granular detail, but there's no reason why we can't work with Natoya and her team at adding a question like that onto a survey for people who say, yeah, I don't feel safe. The next question could easily be to dive deeper and ask why and have some options like lighting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I can think of a few different reasons why someone might feel unsafe, and it may or may not be the assumption that it's, crime or personal safety from something like some kind of criminal issue. Thanks.
So, Ms. Birdsall, Terry and we discussed this in preparation, and I think there's a lot of difference in between the rail versus the 2 bus systems. One is the bus systems. It's harder to have a control over that because they go over the whole county and we don't own that. And so I think probably safety has a lot to do with the greater environment that people are in. That's kind of where we were with that. And that's going to be a harder nut to crack because we certainly don't have the resources to have security on every bus stop. And thinking of ways to do that I think is really important.
I would agree with that. We did go into a little bit of conversation, well, more than a little bit, about that particular item. One thing I will say is that I think it makes a lot of sense, Mr. Sleesman, what you're saying is that we need to kind of drill down. I will say that the last couple quarters was really us trying to figure out, were people saying that they didn't feel safe while riding versus it was a safety concern. So safety versus security, if I can say that. So we were able to drill down now where we kind of understand the difference. And quite honestly, we had to change our goals and our tactics to really understand that, because someone can say, well, I feel that the bus operator is erratic. They're stopping too quickly. They're turning too fast. And that's where I don't feel safe.
Right.
Versus someone saying, hey, it's a dimly lit environment. It's going through a neighborhood I don't know, and there's no real oversight of who gets on and what's happening on the bus. And that's a safety issue too. So we had to kind of separate those two. And it took us a couple quarters to go through the data and the surveying to understand what people were saying so that we would be able to come up with the correct tactics. But now I think to your point and to Member Moss's point, it's time to be able to drill down a little more so we can find out the brass tacks things and not guess at it. So right now what we've been doing is separating the safety versus security, having 2 different metrics, and then deep diving into the key driver analysis, which is this long list, which gets into safe operations, transit police presence, that kind of thing. So we can definitely do that. If you have more information that you'd like to know about how we clean our vehicles, I'd suggest that Doc Caver can provide that information. We went through that in prep, and that's where Member Moss is talking about the frequency and what we're doing to be able to work on that as well.
Yep.
But great question, and we'll do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Before we conclude, I guess I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Fields. It seems like as far as our employment, we've really turned a corner, and since I gave you a hard time about it before, I wanted to give you a good job. Appreciate the effort. And the other thing I wanted to say is that from a perspective of, I feel like I'm the grandma of in two ways on the board. I'm the oldest woman on the board, and I'm the longest serving member. And I think that what this is just part of this is reinforcing what I think we all inherently knew, and that we've always said we want clean, safe, and on time. And our riders are doing that, are reinforcing that. And it seems like the on time stuff that's the easier thing. We have a lot of control over that, and we're doing a good job. The cleanliness is, we have to encourage our riders maybe to be a little not throwing their trash on the train and not using our facilities as bathrooms. And those are harder things. And I appreciate that Doc's team is working on that. But it does give me concern that, and I know there's an average on this, but only 66% of our customers are satisfied with what we're doing. So if we want to expand our ridership, we really need to do those. And the problem is, and I appreciate it, is it's not low-hanging fruit. So it is going to take us some time to figure that out. But we really do need, if we're going to be a vibrant transit system, and we need to lead and to work really on the safety and the cleanliness of the vehicles. Oh, please go ahead.
Just one real quick question. Just confirmation, this will be the first full year, calendar year for our scoring? Or,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it also, the more data we have over time, I think also helps calibrate kind of where we are on some of these scores. So
Yes, that's correct. So right now we're really doing a month-to-month comparison, which is, to your point, difficult to be able to find trends. Usually the year-over-year comparison is good because it kind of eradicates the seasonality excuse, if I can call it that, and then the special event excuse. That's a little blunt, but usually in transportation, you kind of say, oh, well, we had a bad quarter because of the Labor Day parade or the, so-and-so parade, and I'm going off the ones that I know are coming up. Or it was bad weather because it was a snowstorm. Well, those are things that happen every year, so we got to make sure that we're able to kind of separate those and still get to the brass tacks of what people think about the service. So I think we will be better prepared next year to be able to have that comparison and say, hey, we knew X special event factor was coming up, and we still outperformed the metric.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second that motion.
We're adjourned. This is actually a committee meeting, and we don't do that, but we are having a board meeting that you will have a chance to comment.
Would like to call to order the RTA Audit Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee. Roll call, please. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Ms. Moss,
Here.
Mr. Joyce,
Here.
Ms. Mersman, and Mayor Weiss.
Here.
We have 4 committee members present.
Okay, we have one item today, the Internal Audit Quarterly Report. Executive Director Tony Garofoli will be presenting.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Kumar, members of the Audit Committee, Reverend Lucas, Board of Trustees, Executive Management Team, and guests. For the record, I'm Anthony Garofoli, Executive Director of Internal Audit. and I'm here to present the results of the Internal Audit Department activities for the second quarter 2023. Please refer to the report distributed prior to this meeting. And then for everyone, on August the 15th, 2023, we presented these activities in detail to the Audit Committee. Today's presentation is a summary. Thank you, Teresa. On pages 3 through 5 of the report is the 2023 Internal Audit Plan, which was referred to the Audit Committee and to the full board and approved in March of 2023. Per our professional audit standards, the plan is aligned with the RTA's strategic plan and performance metrics, including what Ms. Birdsong Terry just presented. Those metrics include customer experience, community value, financial sustainability, and employee engagement. We continue to execute this risk-based plan. On pages 6 through 9, please find the result of 7 audit projects completed during the second quarter. These projects are employee travel, expense and requests, financial support for the Auditor of State's 2022 Single Audit Project, support for management during the Federal Transit Administration's triennial review. We completed the pre-award Buyer America review for the 24 light rail replacement rail cars, as well as a pre-award procurement cycle review of that contracting process. Also, we completed a payroll expense analysis specific to employee overtime, a contract and operational audit of the Fair Media ticket stock, and finally, within the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan, the Accident Notification Program audit. We met with management, received their responses to our audit recommendations, and released the reports. We will track the implementation of the recommendations within our audit management system. There were no issues for board consideration. On pages 10 through 14 of the report, please find the results of our continuous auditing program. This is where we develop audit scripts to interrogate system data in real time, completing 100% audits for all the transactions. During the quarter, the Internal Audit Information Technology audit team completed fare collection audit, purchasing card transaction audit, paratransit certification eligibility, an audit of the nepotism policy within the Code of Ethics, a payroll continuous audit. Again, we shared the results with appropriate stakeholders. There were no issues for board consideration. On pages 15 through 23 are 22 different or various projects in different stages of completion. Please note we added updates to provide our readers transparency and information status. The section includes projects where fieldwork is complete and we are waiting for management responses to release the reports, which is our standard process, and projects we are actively completing. A report out on these projects at the next audit committee meeting and board meeting. On pages 24 and 25, please find the details and results of special requests and emerging issues. We reserve 10 to 15% of our audit person hours in our budget, and we're completing these projects in our role as Inspector General for the RTA. Those special requests we completed during the quarter were investigation to bus operator revenue collection, incompatible employment, and a mileage reimbursement review. We shared these results with appropriate stakeholders in accordance with our audit charter. We will follow up on all outstanding recommendations. On page 26 is our efforts to work with external auditors. As I said, the state auditor completed the 2022 financial and single audit and shared the results with the board in June. The state auditor issued the final report on July 18th, 2023. The Federal Transit Administration completed the triennial review during the first quarter to evaluate compliance performance, and adherence to current FTA requirements and policies. The review examined 23 different areas. The FTA released the final report to management on August 7th, 2023. The remainder of my report is informational. We continue to follow up on all audit recommendations to validate corrective actions are implemented. We participated in several steering committees and meetings to share and learn. And then you'll see on page 30 is the training that staff was provided during the second quarter. The last page of the report is our staff profiles. At this point, I can answer any questions from the committee or the board.
Any questions from board, management?
No questions for management. That'd be a problem if we had those. I think that we are in concurrence with the report from audit. We've had a lot of robust conversation, even in looking through and talking with Tony on some of the special requests that are outlined in the back of the book. We have had an opportunity to revise a lot of our management procedures that, quite frankly, were just dated and potentially would have led to some reports of fraud by way of not knowing the current policy. So, for example, would be the mileage reimbursement, right? It's a good opportunity to look at something that had been done over the past 30 years and just needed to be updated with the times. So I think that this is a great back and forth between management and IA. We're definitely being able to clean up some of the older practices that we have that just might not be consistent with the current market. And then also it's a good opportunity for us to make sure that our operational employees are consistent with our policies as well. So that was also, for example, one of the items listed for revenue and how we distribute fares to customers. So a lot of it is just brass tacks, and it's a good report.
Great, thank you. And from my perspective, I think the quarterly meetings have worked well. We have good, robust discussion on a variety of items, and I think that's a great way to keep the board in lockstep with what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
We call to order the Board of Trustees meeting, and we have the roll call.
Right. Mayor Biassiata, Mr. Joyce.
Here.
Mayor Kumar.
Here.
President Lucas.
Present.
Ms. Mersman. Ms. Moss.
Here.
Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch.
Here.
We have 7 board members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have the certification.
Mr. President, I first advise that notice of this meeting has been posted more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting, that the usual notification has been given the news media and other interested persons, and that all requirements of the Ohio Revised Code and rules and bylaws of this board regarding notice of meeting have been complied with.
Thank you so much. May we have the approval of the July 25th board meeting? Have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Welch.
All right. Thank you very much. We need a roll call on that.
You can ask if all in favor or
All in
any
favor?
opposed.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you very much. We'll now have public comments. We'll start with those who are present in this room. And who is here? Reverend Pinckney.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Reverend Pinckney, if you would please turn on your microphone.
Oh, okay. Once again, I greet each one of you in the name of Jesus Christ, which is the fulfillment of the law. Yeah. I am in support of Resolution 2023-63 for the reinstating the General Manager, Chief Executive Officer change order, signing authority in its entirety. I want to thank you all for being environmentally safe, environmentally aware, and environmentally in tune. I do have some news that is a bit disturbing because, you know, as I do bring information also. I was visiting a congregation fellowshipping, and the pastor reported to us that $1.92 billion is being spent in the United States of America in sexual trafficking of just girls in this country. I want our transportation system to be aware so we can combat that giant. And also, the governor of Colorado signed a Kill More Babies bill in support of abortion, where it's almost illegal to have children. So if we don't have children, we don't have a transportation system. Item number 2023 68, please elaborate for us a little bit on the 216 public records and removing Chapter 650 records retention. We would like to know a little bit more about the filing of grant applications, and I would be willing and supportive of helping you to fill out the grant applications for the needs of the people, public and private sector. And I would like a little more explanation on the designation of depositories for active and interim public monies. A lot of the public does not believe that they're being made aware of how the money is being spent in some ways. They think there's some secret agenda that you don't have in here, and it needs to be broken down just a bit more. And I would like a little bit on item D, 2366, a little bit more description on subscription services. You know, I like elaboration on vocabulary. Thank you all so much, and I'm coming back for non-agenda items, and it's good to see everybody. I love you all.
All right, you want to answer now? Okay, we wait till you finish, that's right. Anybody here, anybody else in person? Anybody else in person? On the agenda item?
Yes. He's asking, is this the only agenda item?
No. Agenda items, anybody on the agenda? All right, if not, let's go to the telephone.
In the back, do we have anyone on the telephone?
Want to check on them, Teresa?
Do you guys have a mic in the back? I can't see.
And around to the front. I can see the shadows. Enjoy.
Okay, we have two callers online.
Yes, we have two callers. Sorry, we lost the audio back here for a bit.
Okay.
Caller number ending in 4132, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rico Danzy. I'm concerned about the buses for people who's on walkers like I am. The bus driver, when I was in Cleveland, the bus driver refuses to let down the lift on the 14 bus. What is RTA doing for telling the bus driver to let down the lift for people who's on walkers?
Did anyone want to address it, or do we want to end comments? Do you have any more comments, Mr. Dancy?
No, I do not.
So Teresa, we'll take that. I heard most of that. I recognize the caller. We've had conversations, and that's been issued over to operations under Doc Caver's leadership, and we're having a campaign for those operators to make sure that they deploy those lifts. So we're aware of the issue, and we will rectify immediately. Thanks.
Next.
Right, we have one further caller. Caller number ending 0387. You're on the air.
The intersection of Lee Road and Harvard is approximately 1 mile and 300 yards to the intersection of Chagrin and Lee Road. The 15 runs up Harvard, the 14 runs up Chagrin, if you put in the 15A where it hits Lee Road at Invermere Lee Road, that will be almost half the distance between either one of those points, and you pull in more riders. That same 15A bus will run the distance of approximately 1 mile and 200 yards of Bartlett Avenue, where it will pick up riders that don't have to now travel the distance that they would have had to travel to get to the 14 or the 15 to either go to Tri-C, because the 15A will take you there, and to the 61 stores at Pinecrest Shopping Center, or have to go to those same points to get to a bus that will take them to Cleveland State, Metro Campus, or Tri-C, or Shaker Square. Most common job in the city is retail. And this is something you would know if you would do your surveys correctly so that you would have this information to increase your ridership. In addition to this, the 48A also will help increase ridership because it runs mostly on the same route, the exact same route as the 48, north of Miles and 131st. I want to address what James was talking about when he was
30 seconds, sir.
reports on the surveys that you guys have done. And if you give me a little bit of extended time, I can help you actually improve your methods of getting your surveys and getting the right information back. So if you are conducting a survey that has a report card of 1 to 10,
10 seconds.
every number counts. There is no such thing as a number that does not count. And that means that you should have the exact number, not a percentage of how many people said 1, 2, or any number up to 10. And it would be in the best interest of RTA
Time, sir.
if you also had an explanation from the people as to why they gave those numbers. Instead of giving percentages, give the actual number. For example, 100 people gave the number 1. This is some of their reasons why. 100.
I'm sorry, sir. Thank you for your comment, but you are over time.
All right, anything else? So you want to, if there were some answers you had there?
Just that I heard the information on the surveys. We'll follow up with Transpro, but the data is there. The way that we provide the information is in percentage format for the board and for the general public, but the data, of course, we do have those finite numbers, and we review that at the tactical level for the internal operational review. So we do capture that information, and as mentioned, in response to Member Sleesman, we'll look at revising and drilling down on some of the questions. So we appreciate the comment.
All right. Anything else? Anything on the web?
No comments, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any reports from any of the committees? Anybody? All right. Mr. Peel?
Okay, good morning, President Reverend Lucas, Ms. Birdsong Terry, members of the board, Vice President Moss, appreciate that shout out. Our team is working very hard collaboratively with all of the hiring managers to increase the hiring efforts, so appreciate that compliment. We have our August new hires and promotions to announce to you. It's my pleasure to go through first our new hires. We have Lawrence Jupina, Desktop Engineer 2, Samuel Dodu, Associate Counsel 2, Paul Beckris, Talent Acquisition Business Partner, Megan Cornelius, Financial Accountant 2, Johnny Thomas III, Budget Management Analyst, Philip Lanier Jr., Paratransit Reservations Operator, Cora Moore, Paratransit Reservations Operator, Transit Police Officers Anthony Harper and Rosa Maritza. And we have hostlers Brandon Bell, Anisha Gibson, janitors Charles Scruggs, Judith Davis, Shanaz Robinson, Jalea Hill, William Boyd, Sean King, Paul Brister, Marcus Sumbry, Byron Hillsman, Edward Drury Jr., you have signal maintainer Breck Moss, Michael Bruno, bus mechanic apprentice, Liam Siebold, line maintainer. Nicola Veris, equipment servicer. Ryan Smith, equipment servicer. Brian Urbach, equipment servicer. Jaden Wadanapin, equipment servicer. Laborers, Michael Long, Anderson Thomas, Jason Tompkins, Warren Thornton, David Cook, Stark Hunter, Ryan Murphy, and James Llewellyn starts our operators. Operators Tanya Proctor, Sean Smith, Geneva Ellison, Chardonnay Teague, James Thomas, Kenesha McCullough, Louise Sims, Jose Negron, Richard Lanier. More operators, Jacob Schuler, Aziza McKnight, Alvaranja, Victoria Anderson, Denise Mitchell, Jeremiah Flanoy, Aisha Maureen, Michael Perry, Damon Preston, Robert Stevens. Additional operators, Felicia Mays, Lucretia McKnight, Jasmine Washington, Miracle Robinson, James Perdue, Ernell Harris, Martin Malcolm, Charles Houston, Michael Sims. Now for our promotions for August, Connor Baker, project assistant in our rail car replacement project. Minnie Bell, material handler stock clerk. Onaya Friedman, service monitor. Herwan Gay, equipment mechanic. Jacqueline Harris, payroll clerk. Sean McNeil, assistant rail shop supervisor. Mark Price, safety trainer. And Robin Roberts, service quality supervisor, cross-trained for bus and rail. Mr. President, that concludes our report. Please join me in welcoming these new hires and congratulations for our promotions.
Does the gentleman want to speak? I know. Does the gentleman want to speak or not?
Yes, I think he wants to wait until the end for
Oh, to
public
the end.
comments. We're on resolutions now, unless you want him to go first.
No, that's all right. I know he was standing before.
Okay.
All right, resolutions 2023-63.
Authorizing an increase to contract number 2022-001 with the John F. Gallagher Plumbing Company for Project 19.27 Hayden Garage HVAC replacement in an amount of $115,567 for a total contract amount of $602,285.18, and reinstating the General Manager, Chief Executive Officer's change order signing authority in its entirety, RTA Development Fund, Engineering and Project Development Department budget.
All right, you've heard that. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment.
There's comment?
Yes. So I just want to make sure what I'm voting on is this is giving Ms. Birdsong Terry permission to sign off on this $115,000 plus change order. And I only make a note is when I see change orders, I always kind of harken back to the bidding process, because if they underbid, they get it, and then we get it on the other side of a change order. So I'd just be curious, what is this change order, and was it foreseeable?
Mr. Schipper, I guess I would be directing that to.
Sure, Ms. Moss and members of the board. Yeah, this is a result of a couple things. During the bidding process, we had spec'd out a variety of HVAC units. The units that were proposed were in order to meet the new standards, were bigger than the platforms that the old units sat on, so that resulted in the first change order to the project. But a secondary thing that happened was that our internal staff, in order to safely and properly operate and maintain the units, we needed to add some platforms around those units, and that's what this change order is about. And so that was really more in our unforeseen site condition situation. So it was kind of a cascade of two things. One, having proper units that met the standard, but then from a O&M standpoint, the ability to easily and safely maintain these. So otherwise we'd have people standing on step ladders and stuff. So we're going to build some platforms and curbing around this so that we can maintain the units properly.
Thank you.
One thing, if I can piggyback, definitely accurate. Thank you, Mike. And good question, Member Moss. And that remains on our tactical scorecard to reduce change orders as well for those capital projects. So we remain to be able to make sure that we don't lose sight of that, for sure.
All right, any other? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody no? Thank you very much. 2364.
Authorizing contract number 2023-106 with Valley Chevy Truck Incorporated for the purchase and delivery of 8 2024 Chevy full-size pickup trucks, equipment, and accessories, and as specified through the State of Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program for a total price not to exceed $589,121. RTA Capital Fund, Fleet Management Department budget.
All right, you've heard that. Is there a motion?
Move approval, Mayor Rice.
Second? Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2365.
Authorizing contract number 2023-114 with the Ohio Department of Administrative Services, Office of Information Technology, Multi-Agency Radio Communication Systems, MARCS, to provide 700, 800 megahertz wireless digital radio network subscription services in an amount not to exceed $1,200,000 for a period of 3 years. General Fund, Intelligent Transportation Systems Department budget.
You've heard that. Is there a motion?
Moved, Mayor Rice.
Second, Welch.
Any discussion? Discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. As I say at every meeting, sounds like we're just going straight on through. These have been through committees. They've been discussed with staff. So we get to this point, they have been thoroughly vetted. 2366.
Authorizing contract number 2023-123 with Oracle America Incorporated to provide Oracle Infrastructure as a Service subscription services for a period of 1 year in an amount not to exceed $225,000. General Fund, Management Information Services Department budget.
Motion.
All right, there's a motion, a second.
Second,
Any
Sleesman.
discussion?
Yes, if I may, for discussion, this was one of the items I believe that was asked for additional information. If I can ask Melinda potentially or Raj to just give a quick update on the Oracle item that's on the agenda, unless we have someone in the audience from IT.
I'm not sure what the additional information.
Just a summary of what the actual item is.
This is the annual renewal of subscription services to allow us to have licensing and access, or this is the cloud version of Oracle. If you recall, we came to the board with an implementation of an upgrade, and this is the subscription to cover the cloud version. We bring to the board our older version, the EBS, in January, February for that subscription. That's for the other pieces of the modules that aren't going to the cloud yet. That comes in January, but this is to cover the services of the upgrade ones. So this will be an annual renewal.
Thanks. Thank you, Melinda. And Raj, go ahead.
And just to piggyback, for those who are not in the know, Oracle happens to be our financial accounting management system, so it is a key software that we need.
Thank you. So Reverend Pinckney, and just for those members of the audience, it makes sense. You can't make every meeting. We're here and sometimes you're not. So if there will be a couple of items and the perfect summary of just what the item is so that folks know what's on the table, just as information as we go through the agenda. If the board chair is okay with it, I can ask Anna to be able to summarize F, and then also we'll have Raj be able to summarize H. And I believe that would satisfy what the request is from the public as we go through.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2367.
Authorizing the purchase of casualty insurance from various insurance underwriters through USI Insurance Services, LLC, and Price Forbes and Partners Limited, or their successors for a period of 12 months, and a total amount not to exceed $2,163,038. Insurance and general funds, risk management, department budget.
You've heard that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, Mayor Weiss.
Second. Any discussion? Discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2023-68.
Amending Chapter 216, Public Records, and removing Chapter 650, Records Retention of the Codified Rules and Regulations of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, and amending Personnel Policy 700, Records Retention and Release.
All right, you have heard that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Mayor Weiss.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, Anna Lavix, if you would give a quick summary on that.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board, and India. This is one of the resolutions we're typically here monthly, updating our code book. Frequently, what we're doing with the code book is removing duplicative sections. So what you had here was a section in the code book and a policy also in the personnel policies and procedures that mirrored each other. So we took the opportunity to remove it, as we've been doing from the code book. It will remain within the personnel policies, but as we reviewed it, we also brought it up to current standards and current law, and so that is what's before you to approve the policy that will remain for public records and records retention within the personnel policies and procedures manual.
All right, I ask that when you're representing someone, since everyone doesn't know you, we know you very well, would you introduce yourself and say why you're here?
I am Anna Lavix, and I'm sitting in for Janet Burney during her leave. See, I'm a senior counsel for contracts, real estate, and administrative law. Good morning.
I have a question and just more of a confirmation about this. So basically, this is covered by state law. And is there anything that is really significantly changed about our retention policy and of records? I guess I just want to make sure we're not losing anything and that we are in full compliance with the state.
We have been in compliance. We're still in compliance. These updates have more to do with just our procedural aspects of how we manage our retention schedule. So you're correct. The public records policy is from state law. The records retention is based on our retention policy as approved by a state administrative agency. So we are in compliance with the law and the administrative agency governing public records retention.
Perfect.
All right. Did we vote on that? No. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2023-69.
Authorizing the filing of grant applications with the State of Ohio for state fiscal year 2025 financial assistance under all State of Ohio programs.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion Welch.
Second?
Second, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you. Any discussion? Discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2023-70.
designation of depositories for active and interim public monies during the 5-year period commencing January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2028.
All right, you've heard that. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor Weiss.
Second?
Mayor Kumar, second.
Any discussion?
Yes, if we could have Raj Gotham give the update.
Be happy to, India. The Ohio Revised Code requires that the board approve the financial institutions with which we actually retain our public monies. They are to comply with certain collateral requirements, and we seek their input to make sure that if they are willing to comply with the collateral rules, et cetera, that's what determines the eligible institutions. It is a normal resolution that we bring every 5 years, I think, and it's for a 5-year period.
All right.
So is there I'm sorry, is there a specific list that we're not approving here because there's no list included? I guess I want to make sure I can vote on this.
The list is part of the resolution.
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
So for active, if I were to just flip over to Resolution 2023-70, the name of institutions for active deposits: Fifth Third Bank, Key Bank, JP Morgan Chase, PNC Bank. Name of institutions for interim deposits are also Fifth Third Bank, Key Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and PNC Bank.
I need to abstain.
I'm sorry?
I need to abstain. So roll call, please.
Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Abstain.
You would like a roll call? Okay.
All right. I thought you said something else.
Okay.
We'll have a roll call, please.
Okay. Mayor Biassiatti, Mr. Joyce, Mayor Kumar,
Yes.
President Lucas,
Yes.
Ms. Merson is not here, Ms. Moss,
Abstain.
Mr. Sleesman,
Yes.
Mayor Weiss,
Yes.
and Ms. Welch.
Yes.
You have 6 ayes and 1 abstention. It passes.
Thank you very much. 2023-71.
Estimation of inactive deposits of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority to be awarded for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2028.
All right, we have a motion? Motion?
So moved, Kumar.
Second?
Second Welch.
All right, any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. 2023-72.
I believe that was the last one.
I know. I was just making sure you're paying attention to work here. We will now hear from the Secretary Treasurer. I've given him time to come up.
All right. Reverend Lucas, members of the board, good morning. For those online, this is Raj Gautam. I'm the board secretary treasurer and the DGM of Finance, here to present the update for July 2023. As far as has been the norm, we'll first start reviewing the economic conditions, the inflation rate, the interest rate by each month. The annual inflation rate, after having hit a high of 9.1% in January 2020, has been steadily declining. However, at the end of July 2023, inflation actually rose to 3.2% from 3% in June. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates again in July to 5.5%. Interest rates are now at the highest level in 22 years. There is the next FOMC meeting is scheduled to be held September 19th and 20th. There is enough widespread belief that there may be future increases in interest rate. The inflation target rate remains at 2%, and we are at 3.2%. This is June's data. July MSA unemployment data will be released on August 30th. The U.S. unemployment rate was 3.5% in July. The Ohio unemployment rate decreased to 3.3% in July 2023, compared to 3.2% in June. All reported MSAs experienced an increase in unemployment rates from June 2023. As of June 2023, Cleveland was at 4.4%, up from 3.8%. Toledo at 3.9%, up from 3.8%. Dayton, 3.8%, up from 3.4%. Cincinnati, 3.5%, up from 3.1%. And Columbus, 3.3%, up from 3%. July fare revenue was 0.6% when compared with July 2022 numbers. It is 1.4% below budget. Compared to July 2022, cash fares decreased by 5.4%. Pass ticket sales increased by 4.9%. U-Pass and student fare cards decreased by 45.7%. You've often heard me talk about the timing issue where from month to month, because these are cash basis numbers, you may have a collection ahead of schedule that may skew the results from a given month. On a year-to-date basis, the U-Pass revenue is less than 2% off from 2022 levels. Mobile ticketing increased by 24.2%. On a year-to-date basis, passenger fare revenue is 6.4% above 2022 levels. On the right-hand side of the slide, when we see the year-to-date passenger fares through July, you'll notice that 15.83 for 2023 is about 6.38 million lower than the pre-COVID levels of 22.21 million. So passenger fares are still about 28.7% lower when compared to pre-COVID levels. August 2023 receipts based on May 2023 economic activity, they were 1.2% higher than August 2022 levels. This reverses the trend that we were seeing over the last 2 months of decline, so I think we're happy to see that. 13 of the 23 categories that make up the sales tax base were positive in August 2023 when compared to August 22. Online sales were 3.5% higher. Regular and statewide sales were 0.4% higher. However, motor vehicles and watercrafts were 5.8% lower, and this is the 4th consecutive month that motor vehicles and watercrafts have been lower when you compare to 2022 levels, largely a result of the aggressive rate increases that we've seen, the access to easy money, the low, no interest or 0.9% car loans, et cetera, are not that easily available, and that's slowing down the activity, which is what the intent of these rate increases is. About every 2 or 3 years, the rating agencies that rate our bonds payable do, as part of their due diligence, a reconnect to make sure if anything materially has changed with our business so that they continue to keep the investors protected. Moody's just concluded their credit analysis of our sales tax bonds. Happy to inform the board that they affirmed the AA1 rating, which is the second highest rating. Part of the credit strengths that they outlined in their release was that we have devised a methodology to protect our investors who purchase our bonds, that the sales tax collections, when they come in, the debt service is already taken out and put into a different debt service account, and that's before we get the sales tax receipt. So that's an added protection for investors. We have a very strong coverage of the what's called MADS, the maximum annual debt service, by the pledged revenue. And you see the chart on the left that shows in 2018, once again, way before the pandemic, we were at about 12.3 times, and that number is now 27.4 times, which is remarkable. You'll see the large bump in 2021, which was at 14.8 times. When compared to 2022, and this goes back to the debt defeasance that we had actually done in 2021. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Always excellent. Yes, Terry.
Yeah, through the chair. Thanks, Reverend. Raj, just wondering, you know, how Fitch downgraded the U.S. debt from AAA down to AA. What is there any ripple that we get from that, or what's your thoughts on that?
So I think most of these ratings are looking at the economies, the business models behind that particular entity. So there is no ripple on us because of the situation that we find ourselves. Our investors are extremely well protected because of the strong sales tax backing that we have. It is pledged revenue. It is secure that we take care of the debt service first. We have no plans of issuing any new debt, so that's not going to do any dilution. So I think it's a totally different set of circumstances.
Question as well. Raj, a question on the sales tax. If you could go back to that slide, I was glad to see the positive year over year on the sales tax. I was wondering, with the 2 years or the 2 periods that were declining, is that a timing issue, or because of the 3 months lag, it's really not a timing issue? It's an actual.
It's hard to pin down exactly what caused it, right? I mean, it's made up of 23 different items that make up the sales tax base. And there is a 3-month lag, of course. So when we just talked about the August numbers being 1.2% higher and July and June being lower, and that caused a little bit of the concern to see if that was a trend that we wanted to make sure that we kept an eye out for. March and April, weather could have had an impact. So it could be a whole bunch of different factors that may actually go in. That's when some of the rate increases were also being accelerated as far as the FOMC was concerned. So maybe that's where the auto sales may have been impacted. But that is something that we continue to keep an eye out on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Doc, thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Excellent report as you hearing now from our general manager, who's been busy. She's been in every state, every country. They've been calling on her to speak here and speak there, be a member of the nominating committee of APTA. We're very proud of all of the things that she's been doing and representing our great Cleveland and regional RTA.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. And that being said, I have a couple photo ops in my presentation of you globetrotting as well. So we'll make sure to say thank you for supporting the RTA and all of our events, Reverend Lucas. I will start off on a good foot to be able to celebrate the reopening of the waterfront line.
Isn't that great?
We're really excited about this event. Even while we sit here, I was receiving emails from folks saying, yes, I'll be there. And also from different folks saying, yes, I'd like to say a few words and work them into the agenda. Of course, we'll have Reverend Lucas speaking on behalf of the RTA board as well. So as you may know, the waterfront line rehabilitation has concluded. So congratulations to Mike Shipper and his engineering team to be able to get us back on track in operations for their assistance in that effort for the waterfront line. So this is very important to our local Browns fans as we start to support the season, and we will be running for the entire season of the Browns home games. We will have a ribbon cutting on Friday, September 8th. The time has been amended to 1:30 p.m., so please note that. Our original time was 2:30, but we understand that the Browns have a couple of special events themselves that afternoon, and we don't want to compete with our benefactors of the service. So we have adjusted to 1:30, which should work well with other special events and large meetings that are going on in the city that afternoon. So we will have a few speakers. We will have a representative from the Browns as well speaking at that ribbon cutting, along with Reverend Lucas, Mike Shipper, myself, and also a representative from the city of Cleveland. So we appreciate everybody and hope you can join us. We are working on potentially taking a ride on the water line as well to be able to celebrate that service that day. So we look forward to it, to seeing you there.
You know, on that note, this is some old information, but when we found out that we had some difficulties with the bridge, difficulties with other things with the line, my phone went crazy with Browns fans saying, well, if it isn't that bad, why don't you wait another year? It went on and on and on. But then when that bridge collapsed over in Pittsburgh at that same time, I didn't get any more calls.
That's true. That's definitely an unfortunate circumstance, but our counterpart in Pittsburgh actually gave me a call and said, good decision on the waterfront line bridge,
Right.
because this is what can happen when you don't invest. And that came up in the Senate testimony that I had in D.C. as well. So I think we got national kudos for stopping it, even despite the impact on the social Browns game.
Right. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Also wanted to give a quick update. There is something called a cross-systems crisis training. This happened the mid-August at Tri-C Corporate College. It was really a summit, so to speak, that RTA was also present. I was able to serve on the panel with a few other speakers, and we really got to talking about the safety and crime that's going on affecting our students in Cleveland. And so we had a lot of representatives there, some of which are on the photo. The center gentleman that's to the left of Mayor Bibb is the new incoming CEO for CMSD. And so it's really nice to be able to have that face-to-face interaction with the new leadership that is coming in to take the reins after Eric Gordon's departure, I believe after 12 years at the helm. And so there is a concerted effort by multiple parties to make sure that the students for the city and in the city are being protected. We talked about a lot of the partnerships that we alluded to in the TransPro and Traction data to say, hey, we're working with the city of Cleveland to monitor those areas. We wanted to make sure that we, as RTA, Transit Police, made the city policing aware that this is not an issue that's just at our bus stops. This is stemming from neighborhood violence and neighborhood issues. It's a community effort that's needed to be able to corral this, and that culminated into the cross-systems crisis training. So we really are taking a all-hands-on-deck approach, and RTA is assisting the city as needed to make sure that we can have a safer year for our students. So thank you so much for the city of Cleveland for incorporating us into that effort. Also, just wanted to give you an update. This is a little dated. You'll see the date in June because a lot of the information did not get rolled out until later on in the summer with folks on vacations and whatnot in the city. I was recognized by the BIM, which is a Blacks in Management organization through Cleveland. As you can see, I'm flanked. I'm in the pink and black there, but there's multiple leaders. The Cavs is in that photo, Tri-C leadership is in that photo, Metro Health is in that photo, amongst others, to be able to have celebrating excellence in leaders among Black leadership in Cleveland. So I appreciate that recognition. It is the second year in a row for me, which is very humbling. I like to think that perhaps the first was as I was a newbie. And so to be able to come back to that format 4 years in, almost into Cleveland, is an honor. I appreciate it. All right, here we got the photo op with Reverend Lucas right in the middle. So it was apropos that he might mention globetrotting. Reverend Lucas, along with several of our staff, attended the 53rd Annual Puerto Rican Day Parade, along with our ERG, our Employee Resource Group, Latinos United. This is really kind of picking up steam as we're able to go out into the community and really represent for our Latino brothers and sisters that make up RTA and just really the region of Cleveland. So we had a great time. Reverend Lucas, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that event that you want to share, but we appreciate your support.
Who was that man in the middle in that bright purple suit? We know it was a great parade, thousands of people. And what I really enjoyed was people yelling out from the crowd, "Go RTA, we love RTA, we love RTA." It just makes you feel good to hear that from the crowd of people. And I would say at least 5,000 or 6,000 people are on that parade route, and I might be even low on numbers. But I'm delighted to be a part of it. Always glad to have such protection from the paratransit police when I'm in any event.
All right. Thank you, Reverend Lucas. All right. Next up, we had the 2023 Midwest Transit Leadership Exchange Conference. We hosted that here in this very room, as well as on our system, August 10th through the 11th. I was able to speak with a class of attendees that hailed from Pittsburgh and Columbus. as our sister agencies. They went on facility tours, they talked about cybersecurity, went out to the rail districts, did a lot of different things, and even had a scavenger hunt, I was told, to be able to really understand the technical detail and the best practices for RTA. So those folks included planners and engineers and maintainers and trainers and HR professionals and a lot of the folks that are kind of behind the scenes doing the work, so that we really got into conversation about what works well and what we could learn from each other. It was great to be able to have that group of folks here. A lot of them will be back next summer for the APTA Rail conference that we have here, so we're going to work closely with them to figure out how we cannot wait until the next Midwest Transit Leadership Exchange. George Fields and his group did a great job in HR, really spearheading and training, spearheading this group and hosting them. So thank you, George, to your team. I heard nothing but rave reviews, and funny as it may be, my previous maintenance director from Tennessee was in that group. We all moved together, so I guess once, we all moved to Ohio at the same time, so we brought the talent with us. So it was nice to be able to recap with a lot of those folks. All right, GCRTA Touch a Truck. This was really a nice event, August 13th downtown in Public Square. If you've not been here before, definitely check it out. I took my own kids to this. They had a ball. It really is nice to be able to see the children of Cleveland be able to hop on board, literally, our buses and our maintenance vehicles. My son knew every truck that was out there and corrected me on a few of them. So they have everything from dump trucks to paratransit vehicles to big bus and the like. It's great to be able to kind of showcase the acumen of our maintainers and our facilities maintenance folks, as well as our transit police. They're providing IDs. They had a great time. They were giving out little dogs to replicate our K-9 unit, IDs, wristlets, bubbles, all kind of stuff. So it was very well attended. We appreciate that. Doc, great job by your team and Chief as well. Just wanted to give an update on August 29th, which is today. We will be given a RTA Office of Business Development Best in Class Workforce Diversity Award. And this is given to us by GCP, Greater Cleveland Partnership. There's a luncheon this afternoon where several of us are actually there now in attendance or gearing up to go over there. And you see the bottom where it kind of lists the acknowledgments, and one of those is board and supplier diversity. So we appreciate you for helping us to be able to be recognized for that. You are part of that. And then the project team is listed in the middle there. Carl Kirkland, Danielle Bennett, Albert Johnson, Felicia Brooks-Williams, and Ismael Flores. They will be headed over there to be able to celebrate. So we appreciate that, and congratulations to them. Wanted to be able to round this out with our rail rodeo. That occurred this past weekend on the 26th, and if you look in the middle of that photo, you'll see Reverend Lucas again being able to support, at the top photo, being able to support us. It was a great event. Definitely had a lot of folks out there that supported. A lot of families were out there as well. Just being able to kind of show what they can do. As you do know, a rail rodeo, just like a bus rodeo, is a series of competition to be able to kind of show the best of the best. And it's great to be able to have that competitiveness and really just have a great time with families. I wasn't able to attend this year, but I did attend last year, and it was a great time. I heard that the attendance was awesome. I have probably, I would assume a lot of that is due to the food spread that was out there. And Doc, if you wanted to have a couple comments on that, I know you were seasoning up chicken in preparation for it.
Yeah, thank you. This was a terrific event, as we continue to build back the familial portion of our organization after COVID. This type of event just brought families out, brought people that we haven't seen in a long time, and they're able to share with us the skills that they have. We are an organization that is that is just an amazing space to see the types of things folks do. And so they have skills where they're hitting a spike, and a guy can hit a spike with a head that's this big without missing it, right? And so they shared their skills. They had fun. We ate, so the rail district director made 150 pounds worth of brisket with a new smoker that they made from scratch out at the district to be able to hold these types of events. So as we look, and as you look at our success outcomes, where the fourth one is employee engagement. It's these types of things that we have to get back to engage and let everyone know that they're a part of the team and delivering this service. So it was a terrific day. I got to hang out with Reverend Lucas for that day. But thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate just everybody being able to kind of come together in camaraderie and break bread. I will round it out. I believe that's my last. I got one more. I'm sorry about that. One more, and then I'll give a quick update, as Reverend Lucas mentioned, and then I'll be out of your hair. Let's Go Together. Just wanted to give a quick marketing shout out. So the key stats for year over year, that's that YOY, is really us being able to kind of have an increase in the overall social media engagement. So this is Natoya Walker Miners doing, as well as Sharon Jenkins and team, to be able to think about how we have our digital footprint out there for digital media. So this is really nice to be able to see that we've had an uptick in kind of our followers and our hits and all of these trendy words that basically explain that we have ridership online as well. So being able to think about how we trend upward is a great motivator as we start to really explain to people who we are and what we do, taking the things that Doc just mentioned, which usually happen behind the wall, be under the hood, and really pushing them out into the community so they understand our value. This, again, is something that harkens back to our scorecard, right, for the community value and seeing people understand that there is a value to RTA beyond just the bus rolling down the road. Case in point, press releases. We got great input from board member Mersman and Sleesman to be able to say, hey, let's think about bolstering this and explaining with Bob Fleeg, who puts those out, what's the value in a reroute? What's the value in a delay in service? A lot of times we're actually bettering the system, and so folks can understand that and take it with a grain of salt. So we appreciate you on that. I'm not sure if there are any comments for that one. Seeing and hearing none, I will round out my presentation by saying I was able to travel to Chicago last week for a 24-hour period to serve on the nominating committee, as was mentioned by Reverend Lucas, for the new slate of officers for APTA. That's the American Public Transportation Association. You've gone to a lot of their conferences, and their current president is Dorval Carter, who is also the GM for CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority. He is stepping down. It's only a year period, and we were able to deliberate for a full day on the competencies of the new leadership. And so people are moving up and out. You'll see that publication being sent. I'll forward it to the board for your edification. There were about 20 of us that were hand-selected to be on that nominating committee, so it's a very humbling experience. And that also kept me out of the running, which leaves me to be at home a little more, so I appreciate that. That was strategy on that part as well. So thank you so much. Unless there are any other questions, I'll go ahead and take a seat.
Any questions to our general manager? Excellent report. You heard all that's been going on. That's just an inkling of the things that she does. I want to, in the interest of time, two things I want to mention. I was at the Tetra truck as well, but last Saturday when Doc was my host, the feeling of that meeting, with the families there, the competition was in fun, and they were cheering each other on. It was just a great day. And that big picture with all of the attendance, it really tells a story of what RTA is all about. So I was just very glad to be there. All right, any old business? Any new business? If not, we'll have public comments. Anyone here in person? All right.
Good morning again. I'm going to run out of here after I say what I had to say. Good morning again, everybody. I wanted to, come a long way. I didn't mention one of the agenda items because I wanted to talk about it a little bit more at non-agenda time. You have one for the insurance companies. As you all know, I'm running for President of the United States of America again. This is my 5th run, and one of my key things is promoting nonviolence. I understand through data that has been issued that State Farm is one of the top gun sellers in the whole world, and there's a contradiction between selling guns and being an insurance company. I want us to look into that. Another concern I have is, the reason I haven't been here, Mrs. Terry, that shout out is to you and your husband.
He will appreciate that. I appreciate that, Reverend Picnic.
Yes, is because I've been in many, many other places. And I want to welcome you, Jeffrey. I don't think I've met you before, but welcome aboard. I would like some more legislation in place in this public transportation also to implement our heterosexual rights, our Christian rights, our multiracial rights, and to address the displaced community, which would be the displaced homeless people and the displaced veterans. I would also like some more, and I wanted, before I
30 seconds,
I want to stick a pin in this, is I congratulate you for employing people, taking away from incarcerating people. Thank you. That touches me in a way you will never know. I ask that we work on more Mayor Weiss' efforts on nonviolence. I love you all with the love of Jesus Christ, and I try to show you all that. And when I'm not here, I am here. And you know how to reach me at any time. 216-548-0820. And I brought you this, Mrs.
Time now.
Birdsong Terry just told us stuff.
I got it. Okay.
Drops this morning. Run out of my meter.
Ma'am, you could go ahead. You state your name.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hi, my name is April Buford. I'm a paratransit rider, and thank you for providing the paratransit service. I appreciate it, but I do have issues with the way that we're picked up, as far as if there are three people scheduled within a time frame, but then you have a certain drop-off, like this morning. My drop-off time was 9 a.m. But then there was a young lady on with me whose drop-off time was 9:15. But she got dropped off, and I made it late to the board meeting at 9:27 for a 9 a.m. drop-off. Also, last Monday, there was 3 people scheduled to be picked up. My time was 12:15 to 12:45. The next person was 12:45 to 1:15. And the third person was 1 o'clock to 1:30. But the person for 1 o'clock to 1:30 was actually made to leave her job 30 minutes early to be dropped off around the corner from her job. And I'm just trying to understand how your system actually works, to where it'll take people, they'll be given a certain time to be dropped off, but then they're dropped off late. And then the drivers are like,
30 seconds, ma'am.
okay, and then the drivers are like, I have to do what the screen says. So I'm just wondering about your system. It's kind of, I don't know, it's very, it heightens anxiety, because it took me a minute to really get myself together, because sometimes some people, they get angry. I'm one of those who get angry. And my heart was fluttering so that I might even tear up before I leave. Okay. But I think I missed my paratransit needing to be able to say that. So.
If I could ask, we've got Nick, if you want to meet, I'm sorry, your name, I didn't.
April Buford.
Miss Buford, if you could meet Miss Buford, actually, if you want to have that conversation now so we can take advantage, and then Doc, you may want to follow up as well.
Yep.
Okay. Actually, if I can ask Emily, if you want to just escort Miss Buford back to be able to meet with Mr. Davis, and you can have that conversation. We can get all her information. Thanks.
Ms. Terry, if I could, just to explain one of the items as to how a paratransit schedule is created. And so the paratransit schedule is created with an algorithm that takes into account the location of vehicles and the aggregate drop-off of all people. So sometimes, whereas an individual may think that there is just an easier way to go to what they feel is the closest, the system is attempting to maximize all of the trips within that system. And so we have asked the operators who too individually will think that there's a better schedule from what they have, but they are not able to see all of the thousands of trips. And so the experience that the customer explained is how it feels sometimes, but the system is attempting to make it the best for everyone, not the specific trip.
All right. Yes, sir.
Name is Dragged by a Horse. Had to retire the given name. Was dragged by a horse when I was 18. And a couple of months ago, I brought to the board's attention that this mobile workstation, aka carriage, aka pram, is the difference between me being a stay-at-home and me being a functional member of society. My concern some months ago was that paratransit forbids me use of this. I've reached out to them probably for over a year now, and the response reminds me of something that I hope you all look up. It's called the still face experiment, Dr. Edward Tronick still face experiment. It's related to cancel culture, which is related to some of the worst chaos America has seen in a long time. And I hope the authority will depart from that stream of from that ethos of ignoring people who bring legitimate requests to the attention of the authorities. Some years ago, 2 years ago, I called in a request that the idling policy be revised. It is really depressing to see vehicles idling, the fixed route buses idling
30 seconds, sir.
Halfway between the beautiful park that the library installed and the Drury. Believe me, those people do not need to, and no one needs to breathe the fumes of vehicles that are idling on a day when neither heat nor AC is required. 15 years ago, I posted a sign in the Red Line, Ohio City. This elevator is no bathroom. I requested to the medical department, county jail throws these things out all the time. I requested of Sergeant, one of the sergeants who's going to pass it on to Lieutenant Hudson. Maybe we get with the jail, and when people are discharged from the jail, homeless people, they carry these things, so we don't be fouling our station.
Now that's your workstation that you brought? Bring it around now. I can see it. Doc, come on, see it. What's our policy on that?
Yeah, thank you, Reverend. Just for the record, this is Fonse Cave, the Chief Operating Officer of the Authority. So, Reverend, our policy is that if you have an item like that you have to break it down. It's for safety. And so a wheeled stroller or other items can become a projectile if the bus has to hit the brakes really, really quickly. And so Mr. Rowan's experience is correct that they would tell him that he would need to break that down and not be able to carry that in that form on the buses as he navigates. In other times, I think the last time Eddie came, he had a red wagon. The same problem would exist. A wheeled item that's just sitting in an aisle of a bus or a vehicle, should that operator hit the brakes, will become a projectile and a safety hazard.
Can that be broken down?
This can be strapped down as a wheelchair can be. It doesn't need to be.
All right,
I ride the transit, I ride the bus with this. It's got its own brakes. It can be strapped down.
all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Jackson, and I am here to compliment you all on the RTA transit buses, how clean they have been lately. But there are things that go on when no one is around, like when the ambassadors are not on the bus. The Rapid, we see people sit in the back where all of the devilment, the, disruptive things happen. They smoke, they drink, they play the music loud. Some people I've caught on RTA buses, they drink, they use those vapors or whatever, all that smoke or whatnot. They smoke inside of the transit stops, and I found where we've had human waste inside of bus stops. There was one on recently the other day on a Quincy, I think that was 110 with a 105 in that area, 93rd. And I reported it and called, and I see it's clean now. But when I see things that need to be clean, I try my best to call and let them know which bus stop it's at, even on the streets, around bus stops where we have to sit, And I ask that we do a little bit better for us having someone to be there to, pop up unannounced at time, which I see the ambassadors are on the Rapids, but we need that on the buses. So I'm one of those who ride buses every day. So I ask that be taken care of a little bit more better, but I do give you all credit on far as the cleanliness and, things that are being done. We have people right now, before I got here, at Windermere and
30 seconds, ma'am.
bus stop, they were sleeping. So we need to get that done. And Superior Rapid Station, all of the windows are broken. Stuff like that need to be done, kind of get it a little bit better. I ask that be taken care of, and thank you all.
We appreciate you coming down today. Thank you for being a everyday rider. Anybody else here? Anybody else here? All right, we'll go to the phone.
All right, we have two callers on the line. Mr. Stewart, please go ahead.
This is Eric Stewart. In the time that you spent, and much of the time that you spent giving yourself accolades, you could have brought James back on during this public hearing and given those actual numbers instead of percentages that India Perry said that she had. If you have the actual numbers, you don't have to say 79%. You could just say either 79% based on this number or get an actual number. And you should also acknowledge that if you have a number of hypothetically 10 people that gave a 1 or a 10, how many of those people are repeat people, meaning they will check twice by the surveyors. This is very bad service going toward the public dollars being spent. In addition to that, the 26, somewhere between 26 and 29 times I've been at a Board of Trustees meeting, every single one of those times, India Perry has conducted a maneuvering scheme on the public imagery. This is not a matter of being in the infancy with the surveys. Any parent or medical professional will tell you an infant's life is only a year. You've been misconducting these surveys for more than a year and more than the toddler's time on Earth as well. And concern is truly to not handicap the public through misinformation or information that's overkill. Then you should be doing this. Put in an accurate assessment of the facts for the routes. You have not done that.
30 seconds.
Imagery, your confusion mongering is insulting to the public, and you shouldn't. You, Florence Caver, Charles Lucas, and Joel Freilich should be better professionals and better appreciators of the public dollars that are paid for your employment. Don't be so concerned about getting paid that it becomes a bigger concern to be paid than to do your job well, India Perry. This is very troublesome. Put the 15A in. Stop it within 3 blocks of at least 5 public libraries, and your commercials are talking about stopping their libraries. The 15A will get you close to that. Put the 48A back in service. The 48A runs the same route as the 48 for the better part of both of those routes. North miles, you'll get better service for the public. And Stop exploiting the public through the imagery that you're doing.
Sorry, sir.
Bring
You're over
James
time.
back on and give the actual numbers. Today.
Thank you for your comment, sir. I'm sorry, but you're over time. We have one other call on the line. Number ending 7935. Please go ahead.
How you doing? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please go ahead.
All right. My concern is about the 40 bus line. The 40 bus line has a bus stop that's been taken out of service. And I want to know what you guys can do to put it back in service, because I have serious citizens complaining day after day ever since they took the bus stop down. Is there any way to put the bus stop back up?
Doc, is that your business?
It is. Sir, if I can you tell me the location of the stop that you're referencing?
The stop that I'm referencing is Lakeview Road and Inglebar Avenue going northbound towards Casa Eddie.
I'll have staff to review it. Thank you.
We'll take care of that. Thank you for
Okay,
your
and
call.
I have another thing. Also, is there any way that you bring back the 38 bus line, but extended it to Windermere or either half of the Wade Park area through East Boulevard? Accommodate senior citizens.
Now that we'll have to, is Joel still here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The audio is not good enough for me to understand the question, so perhaps the caller can somehow transmit this on our main telephone line to our staff who is on duty all day, Monday through Saturday. That might be
Are you
helpful.
talking about the answer line?
Yes.
In the back, if we can just jot down his
Well,
number,
can you hear
we
me
can
okay,
give
though?
that number to
I have his number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this. I agree with that. Our recommendation with Teresa. Get the information from the caller. The audio is going in and out, so I did also have trouble hearing the location of the route that they wanted restored. If we can find out that information, get his
Lakeview
input.
Road and Lakeview Road and Inglebar Avenue. I agree with that.
Okay. Sir, did you have any additional comments for us today? And we'll make sure to follow up with you just to make sure we have the right information from you as well.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, I would just want to know. Sorry about the audio, but I was saying Lakeview Road and Inglebar Avenue, which is the 40 line.
Correct. We got that part, the secondary request for reinstatement of a bus line. That was what was a little jarbled. So we can always follow up with you as well about that, and we'll look into
Route
that.
38.
38.
Route 38
Okay, thank you.
instead of Route 35.
All right,
Okay.
we got it. Any other calls?
There are no other callers at this time.
All right, anything on the web?
No web comments. There are no web comments.
No web comment.
Reverend Lucas, if I may very shortly, I just want to make sure that we reiterate the respect that we request as an agency to make sure that our public callers reciprocate the respect that we give them. I do say that we do our very best on a daily basis to make sure that our public service is provided in a way that's equitable, a way that's respectful, and a way that reflects the humanity of Cleveland. So I do respect that from our staff, and likewise, we require that respect from our callers. So we do have an extension of that on the phone line as well as on the web portal to be able to email in and, of course, in person. So I just encourage our patrons to remember that when they're dialing in, that this job is respected and we do our very best. And we appreciate you for being here, especially those that are in person, to be able to give your time to be able to make us better. So thank you.
And add the way that we treat our visitors of this board, and we are available to hear them and give an answer, and I give them as much time as we possibly can. So I'm proud of that. Anything else? Anything else? All right. We have it's requested for executive session. And because after the session's over, the only thing we will be doing is coming and closing the meeting. There's no legislation that will be necessary for a vote. So anyone that wants to leave at this point, feel free to leave, because when we come back, we'll just be closing the meeting. All right, there's a request for executive session. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a
Second.
motion for executive session to consider the appointment of a public official.
Call the roll.
Okay. Mayor Biassiatti is not here. Mr. Joyce? Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
President Lucas?
Yes.
Ms. Merson is not here. Ms. Moss? Yes. Mr. Sleesman?
Yes.
Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
And Ms. Welch?
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, none opposed.
We meet in here.
As we begin to break, if I could make sure that the following folks remain in the room from staff, that would be Emily Bailey, Flante Caver, Anna Lavix, John Sulik.
Sorry, but the show has ended.
Okay.
Motion to come out of executive. Second? Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
I believe we have to do a roll call, Mr.
Well, that's
President.
what we do, we do. I
Mr.
already
Joyce?
asked.
I'm sorry. Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
President Lucas?
Yes.
Ms. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman?
Yes.
Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
And Ms. Welch?
Yes.
Okay, 7 ayes, none opposed.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Call the roll.
Call the roll to adjourn?
Yes.
No, we.
She said we did.
All in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor, aye?
Anybody's
Oh, no. Thank you very much. That's what I said, but you all said no.